Welcome to Minutes from the Past. Today, we are taking a look at one of the most influential political ideologies of the 19th and 20th centuries, communism. We will explore its origins, key theories, rise to political power, and eventual decline. Ready? Let's dive into history. The origins of communism lie in the 19th century, a time of great social upheaval in Europe. With the rapid industrialization of society, cities grew and extreme social inequalities emerged. A small elite, known as the bourgeoisie, owned the means of production, while the majority, the proletariat, struggled under poor working and living conditions. It was in this context that Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels published their influential work, the Communist Manifesto, in the year 1848. They argued that the history of humanity is a constant struggle between different social classes. For Marx, capitalism was just another phase in this ongoing conflict, one that would inevitably be replaced by communism. Marx developed the theory of historical materialism, which posits that economic conditions are the foundation of any society's social and political structure. The class struggle between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, Marx claimed, was the driving force of history. He believed capitalism was doomed to fail because it exacerbated inequalities, making the rich richer and the poor poorer. In contrast, Marx envisioned a communist society where the means of production, factories, land, and resources would be owned collectively. There would be no private ownership of these resources, and the class divide would disappear, resulting in an egalitarian society. Each person would contribute according to their abilities and receive according to their needs. An ideal vision that Marx and Engels saw as an inevitable development. But what's the difference between socialism and communism? According to Marx, socialism is the transitional phase where the state still plays a role in managing the means of production. Communism, on the other hand, represents the final stage, where the state becomes unnecessary because all people live in equality and cooperation. Although Marx believed capitalism was destined to collapse, it took several decades for the ideas of communism to be put into practice. The Russian Revolution of 1917 marked a turning point. In 1917, during the First World War, the Russian Empire was in crisis. High losses on the battlefield, food shortages, and social unrest led to the abdication of Tsar Nicholas II. In October of the same year, the Bolsheviks, a revolutionary group led by Vladimir Lenin, seized power. They promised peace, land, and bread. Simple but powerful slogans that gained widespread support among the population. With the October Revolution, they established the world's first socialist government. Lenin saw communism as the only solution to Russia's social and economic problems. His government pursued radical policies. Large estates were confiscated, industries were nationalized, and private enterprise was largely abolished. However, Lenin was also pragmatic. He introduced the new economic policy, NEP, which allowed small private businesses to operate to help stabilize the struggling economy. After Lenin's death in 1924, Joseph Stalin took power. Stalin pursued a much more hardline approach than Lenin, building a totalitarian state. He enforced the collectivization of agriculture and initiated a brutal industrialization process. Millions died from famines and political purges. Stalin's regime became synonymous with repression and violence, but he also turned the Soviet Union into one of the world's greatest superpowers. While the Soviet Union solidified its power after the Second World War, communism spread across the globe. One major event was the victory of Mao Zedong in China in 1949. When the Communist Party of China, led by Mao, defeated the nationalists under Chiang Kai-shek, China became the People's Republic of China. Mao initiated a series of reforms, including land redistribution and later the disastrous Great Leap Forward, a failed attempt to rapidly industrialize the country that led to one of the worst famines in history. In Cuba, the Communist Revolution succeeded in 1959, when Fidel Castro overthrew the dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista. Cuba quickly aligned itself with the Soviet Union, leading to one of the most dramatic events of the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, when the deployment of Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba brought the world to the brink of nuclear war between the United States and the Soviet Union. The Cold War was more than just a military standoff. It was an ideological battle between the capitalist West, led by the United States, and the communist East, led by the Soviet Union. Both sides sought to expand their influence across the world, often through proxy wars in countries like Korea, Vietnam, and Afghanistan. The Vietnam War, in particular, illustrates how deeply the Cold War influenced local conflicts. The United States supported the South Vietnamese government against the Communist Viet Cong and North Vietnam, led by Ho Chi Minh. Despite massive American intervention, the Communists won the war, and in 1975, Vietnam was unified under communist rule. In Eastern Europe, communism spread rapidly, especially after the end of the Second World War, as the Soviet Union extended its influence over countries like Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and East Germany. These countries remained under communist rule until the collapse of the Soviet Union. Although communism reached its height after the Second World War, by the 1980s, cracks began to appear in the system. The Soviet Union faced economic stagnation, and its political structures were rigid and ineffective. In 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev became General Secretary of the Communist Party and recognized the need for reforms. He introduced policies of perestroika, economic restructuring, and glasnost, political openness, to modernize the Soviet Union. However, these reforms destabilized the system rather than saving it. By 1989, communist regimes in Eastern Europe collapsed, and the Berlin Wall, the symbol of the Cold War, fell. In 1991, the Soviet Union itself disintegrated, marking the end of the Cold War and the era of global communist dominance. Although communism as a dominant global system has largely collapsed, several communist-ruled countries still exist today, including China, Cuba, North Korea, and Vietnam. China, in particular, has transformed by combining market-oriented reforms with an authoritarian communist government. The ideology of communism remains an influential part of many social movements worldwide. Debates on social justice, inequality, and workers' rights often draw upon communist ideas, even in their more modern forms. That was a deeper look into the history of communism, from its theoretical foundations with Marx and Engels to its rise and fall as a global power. While its influence has waned, its legacy and ideas continue to shape conversations on inequality and social justice today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. and consider subscribing to Minutes from the Past for more engaging content on world history. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Let us know in the comments what other historical topics you'd like us to cover next. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.